I'm John Britton.
And I'm Angela Jameson, and together we've created the School of Humankind.
We'd like to welcome you to Humanity, where Angela, I, and sometimes other guests get ourselves a cup of tea and talk about the things that matter, how to be human in a really complicated world. Well, good morning to you, Angela.
Good afternoon, John.
And
I
how
remembered this time
you did that.
again.
I'm hugely impressed. Uh,
Thank you.
It's cold and, well, not cold, but it's sort of grey and a bit drizzly here in the far north of Ireland. Our heat wave has finished. I wish the same could be said for the rest of Europe, which is burning up. But it's nothing
Oh,
to do with
yes.
climate change, you know. It's nothing to do with climate change.
No, no.
It's but we're actually got it grey and no rain, but quiet. Whereas you, I believe, are still roasting.
I'm steaming, absolutely steaming. But, it's good for my berry crop. I have to pick that. Like my husband was saying, oh, we need an orchard of berries. So, we should plant more Saskatoon berry bushes because we have one, which is a historical one from my parents,
Mhm.
which because we live on their acreage or I bought their acreage. And this one tree, it is giving like it is never given before. So, my husband, after 3 hours picking on this tree, said, maybe we don't need any more because we're inviting all of our friends to come and pick our tree too.
It's
This
funny how
poor
things
tree.
like that are cyclical, and it's kind of true of life as well. That there'll be years where they'll just give and give. I've got four apple trees in my garden, and
Lovely.
the main one, which in the few years we've been here, maybe 10 apples one year. It's not very big. 10 apples one year, 15 the next. Last year, oh, probably 150 apples. Extraordinary. And the two others, just very few apples. This year, we've actually had to prune that one back massively because it fell over in the wind. So we've had to prop it up and prune it back and so on. So no apples this year. But the ones that weren't giving last year, suddenly they're looking like 20, 30, 40 apples on each of them. So
Wow.
they just seem to go. Whereas my blackberries last year, nothing much, you know,
Hmm.
wasn't a good crop at all.
Cyclical.
So things, feast and famine, good times, bad times, all the rest of it.
That's right. This is the meaning of life. We got to relate it to humanity.
Yeah, sorted. We've got it sorted out. We are each of us little berry bushes. Although I think I'm an apple tree.
I'm quite appley these days too. I'm working on it though.
So so let's deal with the really important stuff. Tea. What are you drinking?
Well, it is my youngest son's girlfriend's birthday today, and her favorite is Earl Grey tea. So, in celebration of her birthday, I'm doing an Earl Grey tea.
Straight down the line, no mess in Earl Grey.
That's right.
Uh,
Sometimes you just got to go on the straight and narrow.
well, I'm on the sort of grey, straight and narrow too, but slightly Mediterranean. I'm drinking straight down the line Greek mountain tea, which is a herb gathered in Greece, and you dry it, chuck it in a cup, and drink it. I don't
Wow.
drink it so often now, but it was for years about the only tea I would drink. I wrote my first book, Encountering Ensemble. I wrote it entirely fueled by Greek Mountain tea, and I ran out of Greek Mountain tea about two-thirds of the way through the writing, and it
Uh-oh.
was it was a catastrophe. Somebody actually, was coming from Greece to London, and they came to London with packets of Greek Mountain tea and posted them up to me in Yorkshire because this book was important to the world, as the seven people who read it later said.
Love it, love it, love it.
So
Something about Greek mountain tea I must find.
it's beautiful tea, actually. I like it. I often have it mixed with dried Greek sage as well, which is a lovely combination.
You are internally Greek, I think.
I am very much Greek. It's funny, Greece. I love, love, love. I've worked in Greece many, many times, sort of stayed there for months on end working. And from the very first time I went there, it's totally different from how I grew up, the culture I grew up in and so on. But I felt utterly at home, utterly at home.
Hmm.
it really did feel like the place where I was meant to be. For all the, it's frustrating and it's chaotic and all of those things, but I felt utterly at home there. So one of the things I miss most about not really traveling anymore is I miss being in Greece. Not so much
Right,
visiting for 10 days or whatever. I miss what I don't do anymore, which is going somewhere like Athens or whatever for
right.
several months and taking an apartment and living there. And, you know,
Yeah,
I used to love
it
that.
sounds amazing.
Although I could never
I
speak Greek.
mean, what's that?
I can never speak Greek.
Oh,
I tried tremendously hard to learn it for years and years, and after 6 years, all I could say was "Θέλω ένα sandwich παρακαλώ," which means "I want a sandwich, please." Uh,
oh, there is no Greek word for sandwich.
yeah, there is. It's sandwich. Uh,
I like that. I can tell people I can speak Greek.
you can speak Greek. There may be another. If there's Greek people listening, please don't feel that you need to send me the correct meaning of sandwich. Anyway,
Anyway,
what are we talking about, Angela? Apart from
we today, it's a big topic, John. We're going to talk about convenience and its
Ooh,
impact on humanity.
humanity, convenience, something I think about a very great deal.
Do you? Is it
I'm.
because your life is very convenient or not very convenient?
It's because there is a temptation always towards convenience. We are constantly being sold things and, online and offline, which will make life more convenient and will save time and so on. And often we have to work harder and harder to be able to pay for these things that will save us time, to work harder and harder to pay for these things that will save us time, and so on. And it becomes increasingly apparent to me, or it seems so, this is how I see the world, that for every convenience we buy, we pay a huge and invisible cost. And I think that we are so addicted to convenience that we simply ignore the price that we pay. In the same way as sugary things taste nice, and so we eat them and ignore the fact that we are giving ourselves diabetes. I speak as a diabetic. Uh,
Right.
or so I think convenience is increasingly a toxic concept, and we need to make strong personal commitments to be willing for life to be inconvenient, to do things
But
the hard way.
there's got to be a foundation of convenience because John, do not take me back to scrubbing my laundry on those. Actually, I never did that ever, but I've seen it in shows, scrubbing the laundry on those washboards.
Let,
I can't do that. Or building a fire to cook a meal. Like, come
let's
on,
talk.
John.
Let's
There's
talk
got to be
about.
a foundation.
Let's talk about foundations. I want to tell. Can I tell you a little story? A foundational story.
Tell me, please.
Okay. I love this little story. Um, that Socrates, that great founder of Greek philosophy, who people go, Socrates wrote really interesting things. He didn't actually. Socrates was illiterate. He couldn't write.
Oh,
He can neither read nor write. His teachings were brought into the world mainly by Plato, who wrote books reporting what Socrates had said.
Plato's such a nice guy to do that.
He was, in some
Or
ways.
did he steal his ideas and
No,
say that they
he
okay,
very much reported on, whether it's accurately, we have no way of telling, but he definitely reported on what Socrates wrote. Um, but
which he didn't write?
Socrates, or did he? I didn't write you what Socrates said, but Socrates told a story which Plato reports, and it's a myth that this is 3 centuries BCE, so it's whatever it is, 2,500 years, 2,500 years ago, or something like that.
Just
Uh,
a few.
and he says back in the day, so back in the past from his day, one of the Egyptian gods went to the Egyptian king and said, I have this great new invention. It's called writing.
Mm,
And I am willing to give you the invention of writing. And the Egyptian king said, I don't want it. We don't want writing because this technology will remove from people the need to remember. And it's such an interesting sort of insight that for all the things that are gained by something, there is often an invisible price. So at the moment, everyone's getting excited about Christopher Nolan's film, The Odyssey. The Odyssey was written by Homer, who may or may not have been one person or many people. And he didn't write it. He wrote down stories that were told for thousands of years before. So it was an oral tradition. And when people told these stories, there were storytellers who could remember and could tell stories that went on for days, weeks. And when they were able to write them down, they could no longer do it because they no longer had to. When I grew up, we didn't have calculators. My first job was behind the bar in a pub and, late night on a Saturday after we were meant to be closed, but we're actually still open because we were in the middle of nowhere in rural North Wales. And you'd get a round coming in and there'd be somebody at the bar shouting at you. There'd be 40 drinks and you'd have to add it all up in your head. Now there are calculators or it's all done, press a button, pint, gin, pint, and it does it all for you. So people don't add up in their heads and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. Now, there is always a baseline. Yeah, you're right. There is always a baseline. But before we decide what our personal baseline is, I think we need to be really clear about saying, what am I going to lose by adopting this as my baseline? That's my position.
Yes.
Bite me.
Well, I mean, I already threw in my idea of the foundation of things that I do not want to go back to, and I think they are there for a very good reason. But your what you've brought up is very relevant when we're talking about AI.
For
Zip
sure.
it all the way up here where we're facing the impact of AI on our world. And I can see people stop thinking. Their novel ideas they've stopped. And so many people on the internet selling just post this that you create out of AI and people will buy it. So then we're actually swirling around the same ideas. It just depends on your marketing to see whether people will throw you their 7 or $97 for whatever AI got you to create. So and books, especially nonfiction books. You can create a nonfiction book with AI. I don't exactly know, but I assume you can do it in a day, that,
Easy, easy.
and then you publish it and sell it, and people have no clue that they're reading AI, which is a culmination of what we know. So, you could say, is that really bad? It's kind of like summarizing what we've learned as humanity. And someone's profiting off of having the idea of doing it. Is that bad? But you get into the whole what the data centers are costing us as potentially as humanity. I actually have a good friend who's involved because of my engineering background. I have a network of engineers. One of them is working in these data centers, and they're having this moral battle of like, should we actually invest this much money in creating these centers? Because what they're having issues with is cooling.
Hmm.
Like how are they going to cool these massive data centers? What is the impact on our environment? They're even talking about using outer space as an option. So it's scientifically fascinating, but what is the impact? And so that's huge. So your topic today is really relevant.
So
And
that
if
that
you talk,
that's
yeah, go
so
ahead.
that just becomes, there's so many things in what you're saying there, so many things. Um, and there's two things I want to separate out, which I think we should talk about both of these. But the first one is, You say scientifically fascinating and so on. And yeah, absolutely right, it is. But it does bring you straight to the question of just because we can do something, should we do it?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it would be really scientifically fascinating to, build just cooling systems in space and, data transmission to and from space and so on. And there would be huge scientific advances in that. What would be the price?
Yeah.
The intermediate sizes of entire ecosystems destroyed or under, because of lack of water, or entire communities destroyed because they don't have electricity or drinking water anymore, or sea levels risen because, we've, as a temporary measure, put data centers under the sea to try to cool them, and it's raised sea level temperatures and so on. What is the price we're going to pay? And science, particularly Western science, has been really, really, really bad at acknowledging that there is a massive price to be paid for technological and scientific advance. Yes, we could split the atom. Should we? Yes, we
Right.
could. We could develop artificial intelligence, but should we? Because as soon as you go, yeah, we could create biological weapons, yeah, and then they get into the hands of people who are going to commit genocide. So, and for
Yeah.
scientists to go, but we're pure scientists, we just look at the research. Sorry, we have moral and ethical responsibilities. So, in the big picture, which you talk about, space and so on, and I really recognize you talk about colleagues having ethical, concerns about this. There are ethical questions which are for scientists and for researchers, they are for governments who fund science, and they're for us who pay taxes who elect governments. And I do think it's incumbent on us to be saying to governments, nah, actually, we're not going to elect politicians who are going to build data centers in communities that will destroy our ecosystems because they will use all the available water. Ireland at the moment is going hell for leather to build American data centers. And frankly, I think it's a really bad policy. I think you should invest that money in improving our ecosystems and finding ways to earn a decent living from that instead of enriching some tech bros in San Francisco by being a outsourced resource for them.
Yeah. There's so much to this AI topic. So, but if we bring it back to let's bring it back to the foundation and this, the small increments of convenience, because AI is potentially a huge, huge other topic. But if I just think about this phone in my hand, which is not in my hand, I am paying attention to you, John.
This phone in your metaphoric hand.
Yes. I just showed John both my hands, so he knows I'm not lying. But it has really affected modern day life.
Hmm.
When I was a kid and we didn't have these phones, and I am that old, where I had to remember my phone number.
Hmm.
And I knew my best friend's phone number. I knew the school's phone number. I knew my doctor's phone number. Like I was a very big numbers kid, and I can still remember them to this day. A lot like today, I struggle to tell you my kids' phone numbers
Uh,
because I just have to press their face on, their icon on my phone. So yeah, it's taking away that part of memory, which I love how Socrates, in the olden days, there was an Egyptian, in my olden days, I had to remember phone numbers. And I think that was really good training for your mind. Now, if you,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was
yeah,
a training for the mind. It wasn't about remembering phone numbers. It was about training your mind to be engaged with the world, to know things.
yes. And I was trying to relate it to soften it a bit to say, are there things that my kids have to remember that I'm just saying, it's different, like that I'm saying, oh, they're losing this, but in fact, they're not because they're thinking of something else. But I personally cannot think of it at the moment unless you talk about rap lyrics. I don't really know what they're forced to remember. But anyway, that's the point.
So that is the point that Yeah, because you talk about phone numbers, and yeah, totally. And another one that seems really relevant to me is back in the day, if I wanted to, I brought up in North Wales. If I wanted to, when I was 16, drive to 18, drive to a university interview in Hull, I had to get a map and I had to trace it and write down, okay, you go to here, you go to Leeds, and you take
Oh,
this road to
yes.
that. And I had to be able to read a map. Now,
Yes,
who reads maps? Specialists, but relatively few people. You go, put it into Google Maps, and if Google Maps tells you to drive off a cliff, you do it because Google Maps told you to do it. I'm not,
that's right.
those are extreme situations, but there's not extreme situations where you go, well, I feel like I should be heading in that direction, but Google Maps tells me to go in this direction, so I'll just do what the computer says. And I think it's why I asked this question about what is the price we are paying for convenience. I think that increasingly, as industry and corporations are more and more desperate to sell us convenience, increasingly the price we are paying is huge and what we are gaining is very little. So I don't think there are many things that your kids' generation are gaining by no longer having to think for themselves. I don't think there is anything that students are gaining by being able to press a button and get an essay so that they don't have to read a load of books and write an essay. I don't think we're gaining anything except convenience, which gives us time. And what are we doing with the time? We're generally speaking wasting it. We're staring
Mm,
at Netflix or we're hanging out. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but it turns us into inert sort of
mm.
sponges where we buy our experiences from outside of ourselves. And as you,
Yeah, and that brings, sorry, I was thinking about friction in life.
yeah,
And as an engineer, I'll always talk about friction, but it's kind of what friction are we reducing? Are we reducing, I guess you could call it meaningless friction, in terms of, if removing, for instance, layers of bureaucracy, that's really good to remove those in terms of convenience, or repetitive. Say you go into a federal building, I will say, and you have to go take this form here and then take this form, like making that more efficient, making that more convenient makes sense.
yeah,
But when friction is meaningful, like let's talk about learning an instrument or learning a language. Yeah, it's not easy. That's friction to your life, but it's really meaningful. It's to reduce that kind of friction, like, oh, just trace my art. You don't have to create your own.
mm,
What is that? What are you giving up? You're giving away your creativity. You're taking away the meaningful friction that actually creates life. Even you can even relate it to taking care of your kids, taking care of your aging parents.
mm,
It costs you a whole lot of time,
yeah.
but holy man, it's meaningful. So yeah, I can hire a nanny to take care of my kids, but I'm losing so much meaning. This is another cost. What friction are you taking away? And is it meaningful actually to you to fight through it?
Yeah, it's interesting because earlier I said there are two things that came out of what you had been talking about earlier, and one of them was, just because science can do something doesn't mean it should. The other thing that was in there, which I forgot to get to, uh, was I think one of the most invisible but biggest prices that we pay for contemporary convenience is that we actually lose our humanity. We lose
Ooh,
what it is to be
yes.
human. And a lot of that comes from what you're calling, productive friction, necessary friction. Uh, you know, it's sure you can get on a train and get to the top of the mountain, but it
Mm,
means more if you walk up the mountain. And if you go, well, you don't have to get to the train to the top of the mountain, sit on your sofa and we'll show you a film of the top of the mountain. You've still seen the top of the mountain, but you've achieved nothing. There's nothing in there that makes you go, I walked out into the world and I achieved something. And this, you see, for me, this is what I think is one of the great unforgivable costs of AI. And I know this is unfashionable and you're meant to be saying, oh, AI is very accessible and blah, blah, blah. People say they've written a novel because they put a prompt into ChatGPT and they got a thing and they maybe gave it a quick scan and asked ChatGPT to improve it and then they published it. That's not writing a novel. Writing a novel takes a long time and it's
And Greek
hard.
mountain tea.
And Greek mountain tea. And it takes sitting there going, oh God, I am really stuck. And when you're really stuck, you have to work. And when you work, you grow. You learn something. These days I'm a visual artist. I paint. It is not the same to put a prompt into ChatGPT and say, make me a picture of blah, blah, blah. I do trial and error. I make pictures that I look at afterwards and go, well, that was bloody awful. What am I going to learn from that? And I
Mm-hmm.
deepen. And that's not about being sort of noble sacrificing. That's human creativity. It's the greatest joy of all, where you go, I made something. Or if you're in a collaboration, we did something. I used to, work a lot in collaborative theatre. At that moment where the performance ends, in that little moment of silence before the audience applauds, we know that we have done something. And there is no greater feeling. And we are
Absolutely.
depriving people of the right to be fully human because we say you can get a simulacrum of it by pushing a button or not even doing that. Now you just say, hey, Siri, tell ChatGPT to do this. You don't even have to shift your ass off the sofa. And you end up with a product and you're being told that for only £20 a month subscription, that you've achieved something. You haven't. All you've achieved is that you've put more slop out into the world and you've taught yourself that you have no agency, that you're incompetent and you have nothing of value to give, that it all has to be given to you by someone from San Francisco or Silicon Valley or wherever it is. And I think that is an appalling thing to be doing to the next generation. I mean, as you can probably tell, I'm passionate about this. I want young people to be going out there and struggling with their art. Not financially,
Yes.
preferably. I'd like them to get a universal basic income so we can all survive, because I'm not in favor of
Yes.
people not eating. But I want them to be banging their head against the wall trying to get something to work. And when they get it to work, I want them to stand there and hold it and say, I did this. Me.
Hmm.
I made
Hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And I don't have to, I can thank the people I learned from, but I take responsibility and pride in my own work. And I think AI and many other technologies are preventing us from doing this.
I think your line about it's taking away so much of what humanity is. You didn't say those exact words, but
Close,
paraphrasing.
close enough.
Close enough, right? And in your grandiose examples, I want to give a very simple example. I was kind of complaining about the berries, but as I was picking these berries for 3 hours melting in the sun, um, I remember thinking, it's actually kind of cool. I can feel which ones I should pull.
Mm,
I can feel, like, oh, this one's getting a little dry. This one's perfect. This one's a little hard. And because you do that over and over, you start to get the feel of stuff.
yeah,
And people who watch people pick berries or have never picked a berry before will never feel that lovely feeling. And I remember equating it in my mind to those people that can cook a steak and know exactly what rarity it is or how well done it is just by the feel.
yeah,
And they say, oh, press that fleshy part of your thumb and that's like medium well. And but you don't know it until you do it, and probably you need to do it a few billion times, not that long,
yeah, yeah,
but a few times, to know that feeling. And I think knowing those feelings or just doing stuff is what we need to appreciate more as humans, is trying stuff and failing and then feeling and feeling,
Yeah.
like that
It's
is being
empowerment.
human.
It's our empowerment. We are empowered by the act of doing, by going, I
Yeah.
have made a difference in the world. It might be a tiny difference, it might be a massive difference, but we are empowered by making a difference, by creating something in the world. And I think about, your example, what you call a simple example, but it seems to me profound about picking the berries. What would you really gain if there was a machine that you could buy and you could just sit in the chair you're sitting in now, press a button, and it would go and pick all the berries and they'd all be in your kitchen? Yeah, you would gain something. Would it be worth the price of what you've lost? I'm not talking about the cost of the machine. I'm talking about what you would have lost, the struggle, the hardship, the annoying, the ability to talk about it at a dinner party afterwards going, I thought I was going to bloody die out there. All of this stuff that makes us human.
Yeah.
When I'm chatting with other artists in my studio space, there's seven of us, as you know, got studios in one corridor in the courthouse in Bushmills. And you're sitting there and you're talking to other artists and you're going, oh God, I tried mixing this color with that color and it came out sludge. And they go, oh God, I know, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the anecdotes. It's the
Yeah.
laughter. Hey, I just discovered this. And someone goes, oh, wow, that's really cool. And
Yeah.
it's what are we gaining if we don't actually have to do anything? And this is my big thing that, yes, there is a foundational line. I don't want to go back to having to wash clothes by hand. But there is also foundational prices that we have to pay. And I think in a world that screams convenience, each of us needs to ask at a deep level, at what cost? And I don't
Mm.
mean the cost of the subscription. I mean, what human experience am I going to lose if I no longer have to do X because something or someone will do it for me?
Yeah.
And
And it made me,
is it worth it? Is watching
yeah.
Netflix for an extra 2 hours a day really the summit of my ambition for my life?
Yeah. To look back on your life and say, I watched 2 hours of Netflix a day.
Yeah,
But
it's
it made me think of what you and I talk about a lot in terms of losing presence with our life. Just to, the whole when you have a project and you have to plan it out and you
mm,
have to dream about what it's going to become, and then you take those difficult little steps to get started. Uh, and right now I'm planning out a new novel. So it's creating the characters. It's creating the whole moral of the story. I like stories with little messages and just feeling that whole environment of the book. If I used AI, it's yeah, I can create a book for you in a day, but it's that pleasure and sometimes misery
mm.
of actually doing it. And I think there's so much richness in that. Uh, and if you can just get things right away, the presence of being diving into life, you miss that. And that's pretty huge. That's a huge price to pay.
I love what you're saying there. I think it's really important. It maps onto, for me, when I do quite a lot of small paintings, and sometimes they sort of things they're in a series that I've already done. So that's just a sort of, okay, a protocol. I need to prepare this and prepare this and prepare this. But then, at the moment, I'm thinking of a large scale, very geological painting, which combines peat ink, moss ink, red ochre ink,
Wow.
gorse ink. So it's rock, soil, surface level, and flower. And it's a
Mm.
big scale work. And there's a lot of stuff, color combinations, mixes, blah, blah. There's also, though, composition. There's also the music that I will be listening to when I do it, because the music will take me into certain psychic places. And all of that is in some ways project management, but it's more than that. That's the world that I will live in while I'm painting. And it will be so rich. It will be
Oh,
so rich that in some ways you come back to the real world and go, oh, it's a bit two-dimensional out here. I would never get that richness if I said to AI, could you make me a picture that combines rock, soil, peat?
yeah.
Yeah. it is the lived experience of being present with yourself in the world. And
Yeah.
convenience generally promises us that more time to do the things you love, while actually depriving us of the experience of that.
I was almost painting that picture with you, John. How rich your description was, but I totally get it. And I think as humanity, as humans, this is the feeling that we need that is uniquely ours, that we can't lose, or we can't, give it to AI to figure out for us.
Yeah,
This is the mental struggle that is the celebration of humanity.
that's the word, isn't it? That this struggle, this difficulty, this effort is a celebration of our
Mhm.
humanity. And we know this, and we celebrate someone who struggles up a mountain, or we celebrate somebody who overcomes adversity. And then we buy things to prevent ourselves having to overcome anything. It's ridiculous. Whereas in fact, the struggle and the achievement, whether it's, a little kid drawing their first picture of their mum's face, or whether it's somebody inventing something that's never been invented before, the struggle is our humanity, and we can celebrate that. And it's sometimes individual, sometimes it's collaborative, sometimes a whole society creates something. And we
Yeah.
celebrate that, not by outsourcing our creativity to convenient processes. Now, some will say, "Oh, we can celebrate AI because it's human, blah blah blah." But for me, anyway, that is not a foundation that I think it is worth building on, because the price that we pay to get that is way more than the benefit it's going to give us. There are areas of AI which I get, they can skim images of breast cancer and find tumors infinitely more efficiently than doctors can, and so on and so. I really recognize there are elements, but popularized AI is a foundation that is the price is far too high, and I think the same is true of many things that we now call convenient. So my call to arms is
Mhm.
be willing to, well, I think in Buddhism the phrase is chop wood and carry water. Be
Yeah.
willing to do the work, because what you gain by doing the work is infinitely more than you will gain by the convenience of outsourcing that work to someone or something else.
And I might add the word do meaningful work,
Yeah, yeah.
which is also highly personalized. What is meaningful to you versus what is meaningful to me? Um, and then that brings me to maybe some people think all of those bureaucratic steps are meaningful to them. And so we just have to let people figure that out because yeah, it's just that moral line that we talked about how it's scientifically fascinating, but should we actually do it? It's there's just so many nuances to this.
Certainly, I think it's true that there are many people who might think that the scrubbing of clothes or the scrubbing of floors is meaningful work, and that
Never.
they
Oh,
want to be
actually,
doing it.
floors.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not one of those people, I have to say. But people who go, well, actually, this is meaningful to me. I like the cleanliness. I like the act of service. And so on and so forth. So I don't want to pass judgment on what other people find convenient, or the prices they're willing to pay. I want to shout very, very loudly about saying you're paying a price. And it's not just a simple price. You are paying a price in terms of your humanity. Just as Socrates pointed out that when writing is introduced into the world, he was writing just at the point where the Greek alphabet was developing out of the original Hebrew alphabet. So writing was, the society was becoming literate at his time. And he was
Right.
pointing out the very simple thing. This may be great, but you're going to lose something. And I think that's a lesson that we desperately, desperately need to remember right now.
Yes. on that Socrates story, but then without learning writing, we lose the his story. It's like the person who eventually translated it. It's kind of like that childhood game of whispering into your friend's ear around the circle, right? Is it really what that person meant if he didn't write it down? So it's almost like leaving the legacy. It's training the brain versus leaving the true legacy of what you meant. So I think when we're talking about convenience, it's like looking at those two elements carefully and realizing, what are you losing? And so is there a way that I can make sure I don't lose it, even if I want this convenience?
It's a rich topic, Angela.
And
I,
I'm going to go and memorize my children's phone numbers.
I'm going to go and remember the whole of Homer's Odyssey. I can't generally these days remember what time my next conversation is. But we've talked about longer than we normally do, and my teacup is very definitely empty.
Yes, I've got one sip left.
Well,
This is a sad, sad day, but
it,
it usually means this is the time that we must end the podcast.
and the good thing is, you don't have to go and find wood, spark a fire to boil water to make more tea. You can just press a button on the kettle. Isn't life convenient?
Yes, and I'm still debating whether I would take the train up the mountain.
Hey, when I
I might.
just briefly, when I was in directing or working in a university in Bogota in Colombia for a few months, a decade and a half ago, there's a big mountain in the middle of Bogota, and you can get a funicular railway up it. But I thought I'll walk up it. Oh my God. About, I can't remember, 800, 900,000 steps or something like that. Really steep. I did get about two-thirds of the way up and go, what kind of an idiot am I? Really? Really? This was about 2 years before I had a heart attack. So I was in quite a lot of pain. And
Oh my gosh.
I think
But you have a wonderful story.
well, I did also get to the top and go, yeah, look at all those people getting off the train. Ha! Look at me, half dead.
As you collapsed in the corner.
Absolutely, yeah. Anyway, lovely to talk to you, Angela. Let's do it again
Lovely to
next
talk to you
week.
as well. Okay. Well, thanks, John, for this rich topic.
It was a beautiful one. I enjoyed that. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to know more about School of Humankind, please visit our website at www.schoolofhumankind.com, or you can drop us an email on hello@schoolofhumankind.com. Take care out there.